Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Snakes on the Plane. Today we are going to be doing a little update video on my Sailfin Dragon. If you guys remember, this is my dream animal that I got back in February now, so that's a long time. He or she has gotten a lot bigger since then, as you can see, outgrowing this tank that we have for it right now. Not quite outgrowing it by size-wise. They say that you should wait until they're about 2 feet long, and not quite there yet, almost there, but has gotten into some pretty bad habits in this aquarium, such as running up against the glass and nose rubbing, trying to get out, jumping at the glass and whatnot. And of course that is not what you want, because they can actually rub their nose so bad the skin comes off, and even sometimes the bone. Also, of course, jumping into the glass causes another problem, because they can actually jump so hard that they break bones. So we're going to be getting this guy or gal into their permanent enclosure as soon as possible, but we are moving in like 4 days, so I couldn't really just start setting up a new enclosure, and it's a big one. It's going to be 5 feet by 5 feet by 6 feet tall. So that really wouldn't make sense to have all set up and then just tear it down and move again. So that is what we'll be doing soon. I'll probably do a video over that too. That's also kind of why, if you see the water needs to be changed again, but I've just been waiting, because again, in a couple days here, I'm going to be completely tearing this enclosure apart and just filling it back up with absolutely the best and cleaning it. So this is, again, a Sailfin Dragon. They are native to the Philippines, as far as I know. There are the Weberized Sailfin Dragons, there are the Philippine Sailfin Dragons, and the giant Indonesian Sailfin Dragons. There also is another subspecies, you could say, that has not been identified as a subspecies, which is an intergrade. They being biologists and whoever else is in charge of all this, say that intergrades are not their own subspecies, that they are a cross between one of the other 3 sailfin subspecies. I find that very hard to believe, because you can definitely tell when people breed them in captivity what the crosses are. So I don't think that the intergrades are a cross. I think they are just, in fact, another subspecies. But, of course, I haven't had that much experience, just seeing what other people have done. And that is what acro here is. Acro is an intergrade. Again, I don't know the sex of acro yet. You can't really tell, unfortunately, with this lizard until it gets about full grown, which is quite unfortunate. But I do use the pronoun she, just because, I don't know why, actually. I would like acro to be a male, so I guess maybe I use she, because if it did turn out to be a female, I wouldn't be as disappointed, since I've called it a she this entire time. Sailfin Dragons are not for everybody. They really are not a good pet, as I'm finding out. I really wanted acro to be a pet quality, pet type animal, and just so far acro has been very defensive, biting. Actually almost took off the very tip of my finger the other day at this size, and they get easily double this size. Acro is very flighty, and a part of that is my fault, because 1, I've been very busy moving and haven't been handling her as much as I usually have, and 2, because this tank opens from the top, and if you want to have a successful relationship with a sailfin, you need a tank that opens from the side, which is hard to find a 45, 55 gallon tank that they can be housed in until they're an adult that opens from the side. Very difficult. Probably need to make one yourself. Definitely what I would be doing in the future with a different sailfin. Another reason is I bought acro, or not bought acro, I was given acro from a pet shop, and he did not get her from a breeder, meaning that she is imported from a farm. So the parents of acro were probably wild caught, which makes acro, even though that she is a most likely is a captive hatched animal, most likely her parents were wild caught, which gives her a bit of a wild side. Those people are usually just trying to turn a profit on these and selling them to people in the United States. So she was imported from a breeder who farm raised her. There are some really great breeders in the United States that I know of. I would definitely be buying from one of them. It is a lot more expensive to buy from one of them, but you get an animal that's used to being handled and has been captive bred for generations. And just like with most other animals that are captive bred through generations, they tend to tame down as generations go, because you don't see animals that are crazy and just absolutely do not thrive or do not like human contact. They don't tend to reproduce as well in captivity. So usually animals chill out and tame out through breeding and captivity. But Acro is a great specimen. We had some issues when we first got her, which is why we were doing an update video later. Her tail had some shed that was stuck on it, and it died for I don't know how long. A good portion of it looked like it was dead, which made me panic. It had lacerations, was bleeding heavily, and the tip of it fell off and would not stop bleeding. And I thought I lost her, and other people I was contacting said, yeah, you probably lost her. But somehow she made it through the night, and then made it through the next night, and just kept getting better and better. Many sheds later, that tail is looking a lot better, but just the tip of it fell off, and I thought a good portion more was going to, but it hasn't. The sail on her tail has been affected by it and has a slight dimple in it, but Acro has done well besides that, and is doing well, really well right now. Just how flighty these creatures are is amazing. Me just sitting here normally causes Acro to fly around her enclosure and get very upset that I'm looking at her. So I'm going to zoom out now, and I apologize again for the mess. We are moving, like I said, so as you guys can see, obviously need to clean the little bit of algae that's grown out here, which is caused, you're going to get algae like that caused from the T5 lights that I have on her enclosure. And I've got this enclosure super cheap because it's so scratched up, but it works awesome as a growing up temporary cage. I have a piece of poster board right here that I put across the top of the water level right here, and that's just to keep Acro from nose rubbing. Now that she's bigger, she can look over this, and yes, I could add another piece, but honestly it probably wouldn't be good enough still, because Acro can stand on her back legs and almost look out the entirety of this cage. Right here we have another poster board on the side, which we haven't had very many issues with her trying to get out on the side, but there have been a few of her trying to get out. And then the front one is quite a bit wider and deeper with the Reptichip that I use down here, which works like a charm. As you can see, humidity is around 80% with the temperature being around 90 degrees. That's what you want. She's eaten all of her greens, which is fantastic. Right now she's about, I would say, 70% on protein and 30% on greens. Really just depends on the day and how hungry she is. Another important thing to have are these vines. I find that the vines really help Acro calm down when she's able to sit on them and sleep on them. She does like to roost. We have some more over here. Other plant life would be great in her forever cage. I'm probably going to ditch this piece as it just continues to grow algae on it. It's just too much of a mess for me. I do like the little ball of fake plants that I have right there. That works very well for her. Being able to just lay on top of that, lays on top of the filter, and is in the water a good 80% of the time. A water feature, I think, is imperative to have for a young dragon. You can't give them something that is just like actual paramount to them growing up. In the wild, if you go and look up YouTube videos of sailfin dragons in the wild, you'll see that almost all of them are always in the water, and if not, they're very close to it. So right there's a little ramp I used when she was littler. She could climb out that way. Now she's big enough, she just goes over the side, but she does love to lay on it and sort of bask in the it's not basking, there's a nice shady area, and she does like to cool down right there. Right here, this log that we have is made of a, I forget what the type of wood it is, excuse me, but it's resistant to molding, which is fantastic. And you can see by the bits of urates on it that Acro loves to sit and bask on this one. This one is not a hot log at all. That's over farther, but this log is where she can sit at and get sort of a medium temperature gradient, not 90 degrees, but probably closer to 88 degrees. It also is a very important spot for her to be able to sit, look around her sort of kingdom, and feel comfortable, because if she needs to make a quick escape, just like in nature, what they do, bloop, right into the water. It's not uncommon for me to walk into the room, her to be laying there, take one look at me, and jump into the water. Again, I wish that we had a little bit more trust, and I think we're slowly getting there as Acro ages, but this is important to give them that sort of avenue and that security, because instead of running all over the cage like crazy and not and panicking, Acro can just jump down, get into the water, and feel secure in the water. I do have a couple cleaner fish, which seem to help the quality of the water a lot. They do a very good job of just kind of picking up and stirring up anything that's in there. I very rarely have to pick up any sort of poop, as Sailfin dragons do defecate, and usually defecate and urate inside the water. So again, having a potty trained lizard is really fun, but having a lizard that poops in the water is important to also have a lot of current. So I actually have two different filters right here. This one is the main one, sucking in. It's really awesome. It's a cascade filter, and I've had really good luck with it. And then this one is blowing out the other way, so they both kind of just create this whirlpool right there, and I've only had to pick up poop like twice inside her cage, which is pretty nice, actually. We have some cover over here in the very far corner. There's moss. Sorry, this is a terrible angle. Here's some moss over here, and this moss stays damp almost all the time. And right above it is where we have the mister that goes on every 30 minutes for 15 minutes to keep it at about between 80 to 90% humidity. Right here, obviously, is the hot log, the basking log, and Acro usually sits there in the evening and in the morning. She does not really care to bask during the daytime. Usually it's just found in the water, and I do have a nighttime bulb, as I find that to be very important. I like to keep the daytime bulb on after the lights have gone off, after the T5 UVB lights have gone off for about an hour, to kind of simulate, okay, the sun has gone down but it's still warm out. And then in the morning, the T5 lights turn on for an hour with the nighttime bulb still on, which sort of simulates the earth warming up. And Acro seems to do really well with that. So what I'm going to do now is get her cage ready. Unfortunately, she will not eat in her enclosure here. She absolutely will not eat. I've tried several times, and I've only ever had her take a dubia one time inside of her cage. She is crazy, crazy scared, crazy flight response, and has started going into a fight response, unfortunately, as of late. So we're going to get her into just a holding tub for eating. I'm probably going to put her little leash or tether on. I know some people have some sort of hate of those, and I don't really understand why. If they're the right kind that's not burning or putting pressure in the wrong areas, it really isn't an issue, especially with a lizard like Acro that's very hardy and very not susceptible to bone breaks and such. So I usually put this on her because she will actually break out and jump out of her cage. Very intelligent species. I love that I can see her thinking. When I put my hand into the cage to put her down, sometimes she's even feigning death. They pretend to be dead sometimes when they get overstressed. So she can even have her eyes closed. The second that she touches the plastic tote's bottom, she flips her body as I'm starting to let go of her and climbs up my arm and jumps off my shoulder. Very intelligent, and as you can imagine, it's not very fun trying to chase this little lizard around your house, trying to build trust with it, but at the same time you're like, I need you to get back in this bin and not be running around with my dog, especially with my dog around. So not what you want. So anyways, I'm gonna get that tote ready and show you guys how this all works. Alright, so back in the snake room, this is where I keep my dubias. I just have a little bit of D3, vitamin D3 calcium powder right here, and the lid to my cage that I just put her in temporarily. Here's the dubia colony. She still does not eat as much as I feel that she should, which makes me worried, but you know, here's my dubia colony. We got a nice dubia shed right here, which is awesome. It shows that they're growing, and hopefully that they'll be making even more babies, which I don't really need any more babies. This is just the outside one, which has the least amount of dubias on it. This middle one normally has the most, and it is heavy with dubias, heavy with them. You can see there's that white one right there. That's one that I have used previously, and with our acro, because our acro just doesn't eat. I don't know what it is. I can take her out several times a day and she'll just be done. So anyways, we're going to get some dubias ready for her, and hopefully she'll decide to eat more than 4 today. Alright, and so we have 10 dubias in here, just getting them all nice and semi covered in the dust. So yeah, acro will, some days she'll only eat 2 or 3, and other days she'll want 12. So hopefully today will be a 12-day kind of day. I haven't really noticed anything different, whether it be storm patterns, cage cleanliness, which is basically, honestly, the same thing since she doesn't make messes in her cage. Whether I give her a water bowl or not, whether I give her certain greens or not, it really just seems to be how she's feeling that day. If she's being super flighty, she tends to eat more instead of being super, I wouldn't say aggressive, but fighty, you know, fight or flight. She sometimes just tries to bite me the whole time instead of going for her dubias, whether that be me using the tongs or her eating from my fingers. So we're gonna get her going with these, and we'll be right back. Alright, so this is the hard part, or it has become the hard part. Getting her out of the cage. Use my left hand. Now what I mean is, if acro was this ball right here, a lot of keepers can come down from the side like this and then get underneath of their legs and pick them up. I've only ever been able to do that once with acro. Usually this ends up with a bite. For me, I can see her looking at me already. I just, obviously if you're thinking about getting one, I just want people to know that this is what they can turn out like. She's not evil, she's not trying to hurt me, she's scared for her life, which is very sad that I make her feel that way. So hopefully her new cage will make her feel a little bit better. So here goes me trying not to upset her, puffing up her neck and letting me know that she's upset. Yeah, jeez. And this just from 0 to 60, just like that. Hey, you're okay. Oh, and off to the other side she goes. So I'm gonna get her back over here. Just 1 second. Getting her in the water is way easier because eventually it's terrible. But what usually happens is she dives under the water, trying to get away from me, trying to swim away under the water, and I can pick her up underneath the water. Because she has her eyes closed and she doesn't see my hand coming. Because I don't want to go like this to her. You never want to go like this to a lizard. It's very scary. You want to come in from the side. Oh, hey there. Or underneath. Alright, it's okay. So I was just trying to keep her from going over there. That's why I had my hand up there. And then I'm going to go try underneath. And she's looking at my hand under the water. She's probably going to give me a little nip under there. You're okay. Good girl. Yeah, the second I touch her, you're alright. There's actually a little bit of poop right here if you guys can see. I need to take that out in a bit. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, I know. And that mouth open up right there is saying, hey, back off, or I'm going to give you a bite. And you don't want to you want to take that into consideration, but you don't want to reward that behavior by backing away. Yeah, I know. We do this almost every day, girl. Oh, and you're on my hand. If you run out right now, I'm not going to be very happy. So, what would be nice is if I could just take her out like this, but she'd just jump right out around my house and everything, so. See? Oh, okay. I'm gonna pick you up. And that is the second time. I'm so happy I got that on film, that she hasn't freaked out with me grabbing her like that. Oh, and there we go. A little bit of a freak out there, but nothing compared to what's normally like. Again, sorry about the mess. Everything is in a pile for packing, because that's how my brain works. Alright, so now we have her in her cage. Sometimes if you have a Sailfin Dragon, what's going to happen here is they are going to pretend to be asleep, or pretend to be dead, which is them just closing their eyes, which is annoying because you're waiting for a long time and you're waiting for them to wake up so that they eat, and they just never do. So I'm going to give her a good sized dubia with her tongs right off the bat. And there we go. Nice, happy munchy crunchums. And I'm going to go turn on the light. And it seems to work better if you just feed them as soon as possible right afterwards. If I wait too long, she gets really interested on running away, trying to get her to come over towards the camera, instead of eating food. Oh yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful animal though. I'll get a little bit better shots when I pick her up again, which is even harder than getting her out of her cage, and that was one of the easiest times getting out of the cage I've had. Acro just really doesn't like to be held, really doesn't like to be restrained like most lizards. But unlike most lizards, she won't just be calm enough for me to hold on to and give sort of the option of staying in my hand or running in between my hands. Acro will literally do a 180 and run straight up my shoulder and jump off the other way, jump off my head, really anything you can think of. And the second that you try to, you know, hold her a little harder, I shouldn't say harder, put your fingers over top of her back, just like any other lizard, they're gonna freak out. So I do feel really bad. Getting her to trust me is going to be a really big thing that I'm gonna be working on very hard in the next house. And hopefully we'll have a little bit more trust where I can just reach underneath of her and get her from point A to point B, or get food to her. We have had a breakthrough in our trust, though. Acro does allow me to feed her by hand now, so that's very nice. Still very cautious at first, but usually doesn't take too long for her to take a beetle from my hand, although she would much rather take it from the tongs. That all started when I started feeding Acro other things besides dubias. It is nice that you are feeding your animal the right things, obviously, but it is much better for them to feed them the correct things. So what I'm trying to say here, variety is key. You want your animal to thrive, not just survive. So feed them, feeding Acro other sources of protein, dog food, good dog food, fish. We have our own breeding colony right now of guppies, and really any other kind of protein that I can give her is a really good thing. She's an omnivore. Her teeth are definitely made for serrating. They are not like iguana teeth at all, which are sharp still, but hers are definitely made for meat. Pinkies, she's had pinkies, rat and mice pinkies, but of course everything in moderation. These dubias are long-term more healthy for her than any amount of mice pinkies I could be giving her, because they're too fatty. They're much too fatty. I've tried giving her fruit, and Acro just doesn't seem very interested in fruit at all. She'd much rather just be eating dubias or fish. So I started being able to feed her by hand fish, because I couldn't hold them with the tongs, much too slippery. And Acro quickly learned that fish was definitely her favorite item, favorite prey item so far. Oh yeah, I see that. It's a good one. Do you want it? There you go. Oh, what, not good enough for you? And if any little thing happens, my phone rings, the doorbell rings. I don't know if I have an episode of something going on TV when I try to feed her, and it makes an odd noise. Acro immediately is done eating. So you can see she didn't like how that dubia touched her. Done. There we go. And so you have to get her back into it. This animal is high maintenance, but it's so much fun. I mean, I'm getting to basically, you know, get to know this animal on such a personal, it's weird to say personal level, but she has so much personality that is really, really weird. I wasn't expecting her to be so crazy, diva-like personality. I was expecting more of your typical monitor lizard, iguana sort of attitude. Iguanodon. I've tried giving her fruit, and Acro just doesn't seem very interested in fruit at all. She'd much rather just be eating dubias or fish. So I started being able to feed her by hand fish, because I couldn't hold them with the tongs, much too slippery. And Acro quickly learned that fish was definitely her favorite item, favorite prey item so far. Oh yeah, I see that. It's a good one. Do you want it? There you go. Oh, what, not good enough for you? And if any little thing happens, my phone rings, the doorbell rings. I don't know if I have an episode of something going on TV when I try to feed her, and it makes an odd noise. Acro immediately is done eating. So you can see she didn't like how that dubia touched her. Done. There we go. And so you have to get her back into it. This animal is high maintenance, but it's so much fun. I mean, I'm getting to basically, you know, get to know this animal on such a personal, it's weird to say personal level, but she has so much personality that is really, really weird. I wasn't expecting her to be so crazy, diva-like personality. I was expecting more of your typical monitor lizard, iguana sort of attitude. Iguanodon. So anyways, I guess while we're waiting for her to eat, I'm going to tell you guys about her new enclosure. I'm so excited. I saw someone else on this Sailfin Dragon page I'm a part of post that they had their sailfin inside of a grow tent, which is basically a tent that is made to reflect light and heat, and it makes plants grow very, 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 very quickly. I thought that was an amazing idea, as these animals live in a very tropical environment, very warm, and also those tents hold humidity extremely well. So I decided that I'd do some research into it, and I saw several other people were doing it, and it looked like, oops, my bad, it looked like an incredible, amazing idea for a cage. They are huge. Like I said, there's one that I picked out that's going to be 5 feet by 5 feet by 6 feet tall. There were others that were like 20 feet long. They can be massive. For this species that doesn't burrow, I'm not worried about her tearing through the tent. It is a very thick material. They are arboreal, so I made sure to find one with the poles that are made out of steel. And what she's doing right there with her neck, that's how she's pushing the dubias down. She's eaten a good amount, enough to make me not worry about her being hungry. You guys can see probably that this area right here used to be pretty flat, but now it's just full of dubias. I picked out some larger ones this time. But the grow tent does seem to be like a very manageable, very viable option. Able to make a light fixture at the top, not worrying about it being something that might catch on fire, might give me some trouble down the road. And it's big enough that I can fit a pond liner, one of the hard plastic ones that I will use as a water feature for her. So it should all work out. I'm also going to ask Aquatic Oaks to make a door for me that'll open from the side, as the tents obviously open from the side. And this door will, one, ensure that she's not trying to jump out the clear areas, and two, will allow me to come in the side and not be so threatening to her. unfortunately, Acro just seems to be very, I don't know, very skittish, as if something had happened to her in her past, and I almost would believe that, but I've had her almost her entire life, and there's been nothing I can think of. Something that did seem to help was when I had her on her tether more. She definitely seemed to be more relaxed and more into the idea of wandering around the house. I'm nerdy, and I play Dungeons and Dragons with friends, and she just would even chill out on my hand while we played Dungeons and Dragons, which is something quite impressive from where she is today. And again, that might just be due to the past couple weeks, me not giving her, come on girl, not giving her the attention that she deserves, and just paying attention to packing and information with the new house. So just goes to show you that these animals need every day, every single day you need to be like on the dot with them. And oh, I just dropped a big old clump of powder on you. Something that you can see right here that she's doing is she's actually rubbing. She's not nose rubbing. Some of these animals will press their nose into the clear surface and go like this, and that's what causes the muscle and the tissue to get off, to go off of them. And instead what she's doing is she's trying to climb out, which is a better alternative, but it's not what you want. This species and a lot of her relatives like basilisks and such do not understand glass. They do not understand clear things. They just know that if they can see, they can go, and that's what they think. And so she can see through this, and she can go through this. That's why she's so surprised. When I put my hand up there, you can see her kind of perk up and be like, what? It's not touching me. What's going on? She's not stupid. I'm sure that she knows that there's something going on, but it doesn't quite click in their brain, and they will literally push into that thing with their nose until there's nothing of their nose left. You can see this in water dragons quite commonly if you guys go to like PetSmart, Petco, other places like that that don't house them correctly. A lot of times you'll notice that their jaws don't seem to line up, and it's from a nose rub, it's called. Do you want this, or are you just gonna get angry? Again, you guys can see her kind of flaring up, and if this was just my hand right here without the dubia in it, she would have given me a nice bite by now. But because I'm offering a dubia, I'm spared the bite. I love this lizard. I'm gonna give her a minute or two just to kind of chill, relax, and then see if I can offer another dubia or two. Another thing that might be interesting for us is in the future if we decide to do any sort of breeding with this species. As of right now, I can see it definitely being a possibility, but I don't really know if it will be with where we will be when she's ready to breed. If this was a female, Acro would be ready to breed in 3 to 4 years. If Acro was a male, he would be ready to breed in about 2 to 4 years. Either way, I'm honestly good with it as far as breeding plans go, if that's what we decide to do. But if it's not what we decide to do, then Acro will definitely just be a pet, or I might do a trade. I'd really have a hard time doing that, but honestly, what I was kind of hoping I could do with Acro is take her or him to birthday parties and events such as that, and people could see a very unique, very different looking species. So obviously, if there's an animal that is as nervous as Acro is, I really don't have very much hope that Acro will grow out of that. So I'm definitely going to be getting a second one in the future from a breeder that I will ask for sure, hey, can I have this sex and out of this gender, which of course they're just guessing. We think that this is this gender at this point if it's not an adult, but if I do end up buying an adult, asking for the most calm one that they have, the one that doesn't care when you walk past its enclosure, doesn't jump off, doesn't try to run up and out into the water every time that I come into the room. So again, all that might change with Acro being still a juvenile and having a side opening cage, but honestly, I am not that hopeful with that changing. Alright, so it seems like Acro is done for the day. Face covered completely in that powder, and already getting defensive, showing off that Acro doesn't want to be picked up, knows exactly what's going on. If you can see that those feet are very large, and they actually have an extra sort of like ridge to them. And what that ridge does is it helps them run across water, just like basilisks, but Acro's kind of getting a little big for that. Those claws are very sharp, very large, because Acro is an arboreal creature, which is very neat. And those eyes are usually what catch people, and they're very sort of human-like eyes, which most people like, and to me is a tad bit creepy, but pretty cool. And along the back here, you can see that we have the dorsal fin already starting, which is kind of leading me to believe that Acro is a male, and then the tail ridge right here, which has that little dimple in it in the middle. As we go down the tail, you can see how it starts to get very black, and unfortunately that is from where the tissue died off at. But again, the tail seems to be healthy, as it has shed several times with no issues so far. So I have talked to other people who've owned lizards, and they say that they doubt that the tail is dead, and they don't think it's necrotic since there's no swelling. When I squeeze it, it feels like living tissue, so it should all be good. The thing that I love the most about Acro, I think, physically wise, is this line right here, sort of from her cheekbone to her back of her spine, of amazing scales. Those scales are beautiful green iridescence. She has these amazing stripes that you don't see in many of the other baby sailfin subspecies. A lot of people like the blue ones, but I really do like these stripes. So I'm going to try to pick her up now, and I may need 2 hands for this, but let's see if we can do this. Another thing that I've heard people doing that I used to do with Acro, but it didn't turn out to be very effective with her, is spraying water on her to pick her up. At first it was very effective because Acro, I'm just trying to touch her tail to let her know I'm not hurting her. Acro would close her eyes, and I was able to pick her up that way. But very quickly, Acro learned that she didn't want to be handled, and when I was holding her and touching her and using the spray bottle, then right afterwards, she quickly associated with the spray bottle with her getting picked up and would not close her eyes anymore, even though they absolutely love the spray bottle. She doesn't like it anymore, so I kind of ruined that for her, and I felt bad. You're okay. Yeah? Do you want to let me touch you? That's a good girl. See, I used to be able just to come over and just touch her like this, and then just like 3 weeks maybe of me not constantly doing this every time I got her out, not spending 1 to 2 hours with her every day, not working with her as much, has made her a very jumpy lizard. Yeah, oh, okay. But yeah, it kind of hurts, because, ow, that tail whip is something, because I used to be able just to come up and pet her, and now if I tried to do that right now to the back of her neck, which she used to just sit there and let me rub, and she'd close her eyes, she'd take a chunk out of my finger. Those teeth are no joke. I didn't realize how scissor-like they were. Good girl. Good girl, Acro. Good girl. She's being very well behaved. She must really like the camera. Can I get underneath of you? Again, just slow moving, being calm. There we go. Good girl, Acro. Good girl. And just an absolutely beautiful lizard. Beautiful. There's those scales I was telling you guys about. She's doing a very good job. Very good girl. Once I have her in my hand, she just usually calms down. Sometimes she'll open her mouth, try to take a bite of me, and as you can see, just absolutely covered in vitamin powder, sorry. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Acro. She's going to be getting into her new cage once we get home. An amazing species. I just need to do more work with her like I was on the same level that I was working with her before. So thank you guys again so much for watching. If you guys are interested in our ball python availability, please check out the links in the description below. Otherwise, if you want to follow this girl on her journey, make sure to subscribe and go to our Facebook page and give us a follow. We'd really appreciate that like, and we'll be able to get on hopefully a level where we can be breeding these beautiful, wonderful creatures and taming them down a bit ourselves before sending them off to you guys. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.